Welcome to the Gray Area. The Gray Area Media. We've obligated ourselves to be the voice for all communities, speaking on topics that include community, religion, education, politics, technology, sports, health, and wellness. The Gray Area Media is a platform created by longtime friends for the sole purpose of providing our communities with the ability to voice current, past, and modern-day issues. The Gray Area, in its naming significance, solely speaks to the area in which people shy away from speaking because of media-based constraints or contractual-based obligations. Well, I'm here to tell you, we don't do that here. So please, stay tuned in. We're going to go live in a few minutes. Don't forget, please add us as a friend on Facebook so that you can follow our live feed. And not only that, please add us on Twitter and Instagram at The Gray Area Media. Please visit our website at www.thegrayareamedialive.com. Thank you. Hello, Facebook and viewers. We are live right now. This is The Gray Area, and this is your boy, Ray E.
This is your boy, P. Wills. What's up?
And we have a special guest for you guys today. Today we're talking about Black-owned charter schools. You know, what are they? How will they impact and can impact the communities they pledge to serve? I want you guys to all share this live feed right now and tune in. I want to introduce you to Rick Anderson. He's the founder of Allegiant Preparatory Academy Charter School, and Robert Marshall, who's the CEO founder of Vanguard Collegiate of Indianapolis. These charter schools are on the rise, and they're going to be open this coming 2018, next year, next fall. And today we're going to talk about some of the charter school situations that plague us. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
It's very rare, you know, to see guys working toward the charter school situation. You know, you would think that you hear any school in any facet, you know, and then you see, oh, black people are doing that. You know, it's almost like a figment of our imagination. But this is the time. This is the time that we really do need to jump in this, and you guys are leading the charge on that right now.
Absolutely,
so,
man.
Yeah,
appreciate you, brothers.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. So,
hey, really quick though, man.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Yes, listen. I gotta get this out, man.
Oh,
Got a funny story.
Here we go.
About my man Robert over there. Okay.
Oh man.
Senior year. You know, the year I actually went to school.
Notice he said went to school.
Yeah. But you know, that's another story. But so there's this lady, you know, girl named Timmy. Shout out to Timmy that used to pick us up.
I think I know where this is going now.
Oh my goodness.
So Timmy would make her rounds, man, like every morning and pick up like 25 people, right? So
seriously, there's at least 10 of us in that Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
Timmy made bank because I don't know what she charged you.
She charged me nothing. Like she didn't like. I mean, well, you know, like you know what, man? I think Timmy asked me man, for gas like maybe twice.
Timmy, I want a refund.
But so look, so I was always the last person that she picked up because how she made her rounds. You know, she'll pick up Robert, then she'll come to the the neighborhood on Post Road, and she made a circle. So I was the last one that she picked up. So I remember getting in the car, and she was hot. I mean, like I don't know what she was mad about, but Robert was in the back seat, like, man, you know what, man, just leave it. Look, man, just let it go. We get all the way to the corner. Timmy just parked her car and waited for like 45 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And all she told him to do was say sorry. And he wouldn't say sorry. So he said, no, I'm not saying sorry. And like, I don't know what they argued about, what happened, but when she picked me up, she was hot, man, about that. And then,
funny.
and she wouldn't move, man. And if anybody knows Timmy, knows that Timmy is stubborn as hell. She's stubborn. So like, I'm sitting there hot. I'm like, okay.
Shout out to Timmy out there.
I'm like, look, I already know I'm going to get in trouble. And Robert finally said sorry. So she said, okay.
Robert.
Yeah. And we went. Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh, my goodness.
I forgot all about that.
What did y'all argue about, man?
I don't even remember. Timmy and I argued all the time. We argued like an old married couple. And again, I still want a refund because now she gonna argue with me. I'm the only one getting charged for gas. Yeah.
Oh man, those are good times, man.
Man, you can always count on P. Wills to pull out a fresh story.
Yes, sir.
Hey man, got to, man, bro.
Wow.
It's all good, man. So there's a lot of people who don't even understand what a charter school is, and the difference between IPS charter schools and such. So can you guys give the audience, the viewers, a brief or quick breakdown of what a charter school is in comparison to something like a public school or private school?
So I want to clarify a couple of things. So
Okay.
I know in the intro we talked about black owned.
For sure.
And they are black operated.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
not owned. Charter schools are actually public schools.
Okay.
And much like your traditional schools, they're not private schools. They don't accept vouchers like
Okay.
private schools. They were originally created really to create an opportunity for individuals to do something special in their neighborhood that
Sure.
had a little bit more flexibility
Okay.
and autonomy, free from some of the regulation that would come from operating the school within a traditional system.
Okay.
They don't have geographic boundaries like some of the schools. So, going to LN, I was 3 blocks away from Arlington, but I had to go to LN because of the way the boundaries were drawn.
It's kind of weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That doesn't exist with regards to charter schools. And so they are open to any and all students.
Gotcha.
Those families choose those schools to attend. In Indiana, the movement started, or the legislation was around 2001. Movement was ushered in. And you had, I think about some of the early schools, and I use Indy Met as an example because they're still, not as much since they won that state championship, but they were still around that time battling some of the same things.
Okay.
When charter schools first opened, people in Indiana were like, I'm not sure what this is.
Right.
I'm not sure if I'm really willing to send my child there. And so
Sure.
what ended up happening was students who would be in an alternative school type situations ended up in a lot of charter schools,
Right.
like the Met. And so they worked really hard to kind of balance their student population because, it was just it was tough for
Right.
them. State of Indiana, as of last year, there were about 94 charter schools in the entire state.
Okay.
Only 4% of, I know there's a lot of rhetoric out there about how quickly charter schools are growing. There's so many charter schools, so many
Right.
charter schools.
Yeah.
This year, there's probably about 105, but only about 4% of our total state population of school-age children are actually attending charter schools. So
Okay.
the big thing with charter school is the trade-off is you get this autonomy, but there's greater accountability. And so your autonomy really comes in 3 forms. It's about your financial autonomy.
Okay.
Okay.
It's about your staffing autonomy, and it's about your curriculum autonomy.
Okay.
And Rick could probably speak to this. When we talk about the curriculum autonomy, let's say a district buys a curriculum because we've done research at the district level and we feel like this would be best for your school in this neighborhood, and you have a school administrator that knows their school, good, bad decision.
Right.
They say, you know what, that curriculum is not for me, and that curriculum ends up in a closet.
Right.
And a district has wasted millions of dollars.
Gotcha.
And so when you are the school administrator and you have a charter school, you don't have those types of battles and situations because you get to decide where your school's going academically.
Right.
with
You guys are in control of the curriculum.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then when you look at the staffing situation, and hopefully this isn't taken the wrong way because it's definitely not a
Sure.
knock on the teachers union
Sure.
at all. I understand their purpose, and I'm proud for some of the things that they've done for
Sure.
teachers in Indiana. But as a charter school, you don't have those challenges that come with trying to work with a union.
Right.
And so
Okay.
let's say I have a terrible teacher, and Pat, don't name any from our LN days. I know you got a list of them.
Yeah, he does.
But
Man, wow.
let's say I have a terrible teacher on staff, and I recognize that he or she isn't a mission fit.
Okay.
This isn't the best for our students. It's not advancing our students. As an independent charter school, I can say, you know what, this isn't working out,
Right.
and excuse that teacher, as opposed to when you're locked into an agreement with the union. There's arbitration. There's things that have to happen.
Right.
And then lastly, it's just about financial flexibility. I don't have the district coming down saying, this is your budget, this is how you're going to spend it, especially when it doesn't align to where my vision for my school might be.
Right.
So is it a for-profit or a non-for-profit?
So state law actually requires all charter schools now to be nonprofit. My understanding is, and I hopefully someone out there, if I misspeak, can correct me.
Okay.
There are a couple of CMOs, which are charter school management organizations, that are for-profit that were grandfathered in. But the majority of the new charter schools that you see since that state law went in effect are nonprofits.
Okay.
And so we all have boards.
Okay.
Rick and I both have boards that will hold us accountable, but in addition to that, whatever authorizer. So in order to even open up a school, you have to choose an authorizer to go through.
Okay.
Here in Indy, the big two are ICSB, which is the state charter school board.
Okay.
And the biggest is the mayor's office. And
Okay.
so they're different, but there's still some alignment. Ahmed Young, who's in charge of the mayor's office, has done an amazing job in his short tenure there, really increasing accountability
Okay.
and vetting schools more closely. And then with the state, James Bailey, who's the executive director there, they have a really robust accountability plan for schools.
Okay.
And I don't know if you all saw in the news recently, unfortunately, one of the Carpi Team schools
Right.
was closed by
Right.
the state. And that all falls in line with what their accountability standards are. And so,
Right.
unlike your traditional public school, if Rick and I open our school and it's not performing, or we have super low enrollment, or if there's some type of fiscal malfeasance, someone's misappropriating funds, that authorizer can shut us down.
Okay. I mean, in regards to Carpe Diem, they are allotted a certain amount of funds to go on for possibly 2 to 3 years, and there's a breakdown at how much they get per year for those 3 to 4 years, right? You know, so how is the money given or
Yeah.
projected as or
Allocated.
contract allocated? You know,
Yeah.
how is, because it showed that their breakdown was something like 250,000 a year. You know, and that was just for and 500 per kid per head count. So I mean, there's some money behind that. If they're told that they're not performing, and they have to shut down, what happens to the money?
So just like any other nonprofit, when it's dissolved, you have to pay your bills, right?
Okay.
And so any debts that are owed are paid.
Okay.
And so when you talk about how do nonprofit charter schools make revenue to be able to operate, a lot of it is connected to a couple of things. You chime in anytime with regards to revenue streams.
Sure.
A smart charter school that is operating leanly will rely heavily on the state per pupil funding.
Okay.
So think about it. The simplest way I can describe it is every student, and I hate to even say it this way, but every student comes with a check,
Right.
right? The state says, I'm providing this much money to
Right.
support this student's education.
Right.
When it comes to public schools within a municipality, the regular traditional schools get local funds. Charter schools are not allowed to receive those local tax revenues, right?
Right.
And so charter schools actually receive less per pupil than traditional
Sure.
public schools do.
Right.
And so
Is that why? Is that why? Not to get you off of that, but is that why they don't have like sports programs? Most charter
Well,
schools.
some of them do.
some do.
Yeah.
So for startup, it's hard, man.
Right, right.
You know, we were blessed with this fellowship with BES, and part of the deal with the BES is you get after the end of the fellowship, you're authorized. You get some startup funds from
Sure.
the Walton Foundation to help you
Right,
kind of
right.
get up and
Oh, yeah,
going.
yeah.
And one of the challenges that Rick and I are both running into right now is facilities.
Right, right.
What's out there, what's available, and so
Right.
that's part of, you know, the mayor's office has this connection with IPS, this relationship with
Sure.
IPS, where they're doing the innovation schools, and it gives charter schools an opportunity to take over some vacant facilities. But facilities is probably, I would say, one of the top 3 challenges for
Sure.
new startup
Sure.
charter schools. And
It's
so
a lot to think about.
yeah, it
You
is.
know,
It is,
you
yeah.
know, safety
Yeah,
and
man, yeah.
area and stuff like that.
It is.
And I was going to chime in terms of charter schools and the thought around a lot of them not having sports teams and all that starting
Sure.
out. When you look at a charter, it's a contract between the authorizer and the operator.
Okay.
And within the charter, and nowhere in the charter
Has
is it
anything about
saying,
sports or
right,
anything.
right, right. It's
Okay.
not to say that it's not valuable
Yeah.
and important, but charters were created to be another option for families
Gotcha.
to yield significant student outcomes
Right.
academically, right?
Right.
So a lot of times, the individual, founder and head of school comes
Right.
in. It's like, well, we really, really need to focus on creating a strong foundation of cultural excellence, academic excellence, and then as we start to have sustained enrollment, as we start to have sustained student outcomes,
Sure.
then we can start building
like,
university and
yeah.
things like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
Which to some is a turnoff, right? When they come, because it's like, well, you don't have the sports team,
So
so,
they don't
so
wanna
I'm
be
going to go the other
involved.
way, right?
Right.
The big emphasis is that that's the reason why it's an option, right? I think for me specifically, starting with kindergarten and first grade,
Okay.
typically you're not thinking about a basketball and a football team
Right.
until later grades,
Sure,
which also
sure.
gives us time to kind of get results and then get to our upper academy,
Yeah.
and then we can
Right.
offer that basketball or football team. But on
Absolutely.
the front end, you have to know thyself and let families
Right.
know up front.
Yeah.
We'll have this at some point, but this is what
Right.
we're focused on.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Your child knowing how to read, your child loving school,
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
respect, growing in character.
Right.
things
That's
like
yeah,
good.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I'm just curious, man, because we all come from the same background.
Yeah.
What inspired you guys, man, to like want to start a charter school?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Good question.
So I think the charter school route chose me. Sometimes they say that things choose you
Sure.
versus you, and that's teaching and education in general. It's definitely a profession that chooses you. But prior to, I'm very much a boomerang. So born and raised here, left in '04, went to FAMU, studied business, did
Sure.
corporate America, figured out that wasn't for me,
Right.
and applied to Teach for America alternative certification program
Okay.
because I didn't have enough time or money to go back full time.
Right.
So I've been in Memphis the last 5.5 years
Oh.
and started as a teacher at a BES high performing charter school as a first grade teacher.
Nice.
Was frightened for half the school year with kids that came up to my knees. They were
Right.
running over me, right?
Right.
Because I just, using
Sure.
corporate American lingo, it just didn't work. But
Right.
going back to the autonomies that charters have,
Right.
the school leader was able to come in and give me feedback every single moment, right?
Gotcha.
Precise feedback.
Yeah.
When you ask this question, you need to make sure that you ask an open-ended question because they just said yes or no. You don't know if the answer is right.
Right.
When you make this decision, make sure you're scanning because the whole row on the right wasn't looking. So I was able to shorten that learning curve pretty quickly.
Sure.
So from there, I moved to a charter school as a middle school, taught sixth grade social studies, and then was a dean of students and a principal of a K through 8.
Nice.
So my whole experience and exposure in terms of a vehicle that yields, significant
Right.
results
Absolutely.
and moving the needle for students
Right.
has been through a charter and has been through the BES fellowship. So when
Yeah.
I came to Indy and applied to it, one, being back in my hometown, two, I've seen this model work really, really well in action, and also, at 40 plus different schools between California and New York.
Right,
so,
right. You are able to experience and understand the whole structure of the
Right.
charter school.
yeah.
Right.
Was your experience in that good? And not only good, but did you see some room for improvement?
Definitely.
Okay.
I'll be the first to be, very transparent that I don't think there's, regardless if you're talking about parochial, township, district, or charter, there's some, that meet everywhere between awesome and great, or that they're really bad and need to be shut down, right?
Yep.
And charter schools aren't immune to that.
Right.
I would say the great thing, I think Robert already hit on, is just the autonomy that charter schools have
Sure.
to ensure every single decision that is made, charter schools that are being good stewards of their taxpayer dollars and putting the children at the center of every
Right.
decision.
Yeah.
Everything I do, I don't have to send something through the system to talk to
Right.
someone at the district office.
Right.
If I want to make this intervention and change our schedule because we see that our bottom quartile students need more time with phonics,
Right.
then we're going to add that to our tutoring block,
Absolutely.
right? So that's one element that's really strong. I'd say, and being a critic on the other end of charter schools, and not all, but sometimes, and I think we'll kind of get into it, charter schools can start off in like year one is really, really good. You guys have strong results.
Right.
Parent and family community engagement is there. Students are rocking. Enrollment is strong.
Sure.
And you start to say, okay, well, we're adding, a grade each year. So remember, Robert will be starting with fifth grade. I'll be starting with K and 1. I won't be at full scale till 2025 because
Right.
we're adding a grade each year. Right?
Absolutely.
But during that process, as the kind of institutions start to see, wow, this school is really showing, you start getting, when people start seeing proof in pudding,
Sure.
people can start bringing dollars in, want
Right.
to support. And from there, sometimes you haven't codified, your operational systems, your academic systems, your cultural systems. It lives maybe with just one person. But then you start thinking, oh, I'm going to replicate, right? Because we have something good, but more students need access to this.
Right.
And sometimes when that's done too quickly, it can lead to, a disservice actually to students in some scenarios or situations. So,
which have shown itself in some schools that open and close. The stigma of people coming in, and this is what it is now. Families don't realize that it's more academically challenged than financially. They only see that, hey, you're getting funded. Why can't you perform? That challenge. How do you guys defeat that? How do you defeat the challenge of helping people understand that it's more about the kids than the money? And because it's so easy to close, right? I mean, you get shut down, you're out of there. There's no hey, in 2 months we're going to do this. It's immediate, So and that's the downfall of charter too, right? There's no gradual change to saying that it's going to close. It's done. So how do you guys defeat changing the narrative and stigma around that?
You can go ahead first.
I think it really, it's a couple things. One, it's about proof in the pudding, right?
Sure.
And then two, it's about education, period.
For sure.
How do we explain to parents? And when we're meeting with individuals, meeting with families, trying to sell them on this vision. We don't have a school yet, right? It's not open.
Right.
So we're selling them on this mission and this vision. It's important for us to help them to understand what's the long-term plan for this. As Rick mentioned, we're both what's referred to as slow growth models. So
Right.
he's opening up with 2 grades. I'm opening up with 2 grades. We plan to add a grade each year.
Right.
And so helping families to understand what's their trajectory
Right.
of a student during the course of one school year, what's the trajectory for a student long-term. And so when I think about my school, 5th grade, what does that look like in terms of the trajectory of the school year? When we start out at the beginning of the school year, the first 2 weeks are all about culture.
Okay.
You need to understand that there's a vanguard way of doing school.
Awesome.
We have rituals, we have routines, and that people need to understand that student academic achievement really hinges upon consistency.
Absolutely.
Right? And continuity. And so rituals and systems
Absolutely.
help secure that. And
Right.
so students and teachers alike going through this together, learning.
Right.
When we dip into instruction, it's what was referred to as I do, we do, you do. So I'm going to show you how it's done, then we're going to work it out together, and then I'm going to give you opportunity to independently work on it.
Right.
We're going to do a lot of that, and it's
Right.
a lot of drill and kill because the students that we're looking to serve, if you look at the data, they're 2 and 3 years behind.
Right.
ELA, so that's English Language Arts and math. And so it has to be a lot of work focused in on the foundation and the basic academic skills.
Okay.
Where we're moving to, we want to begin to do some partnering, some pair share, turn and talks. So now we're learning to work together. Towards the end of the school year for 5th graders, which some will tell you might be a stretch, we get into what we call Socratic seminar.
Okay.
So now I'm not your traditional lecturer or teacher. I'm facilitating this intellectual conversation. So if I have, as what's planned in our curriculum, 8th graders reading Baldwin,
Okay.
I got a teacher that can stand outside of this circle.
Okay.
And facilitate a conversation about the text with students.
Okay. How valuable is that to what you're trying to achieve? Like, explain why that's important.
In terms of the trajectory of the school year, it's a gradual release.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it begins with really getting students, as I mentioned earlier, just that foundational skill.
Okay.
It's hard work.
Right.
I don't think people realize, it depends on the area that these schools open up in, the area that we're going in. Like you said, you get students 2-3 years behind. So, no, you're not going to see these amazing results in a short period of time.
Yeah,
And
right.
people have to be
It's a
patient.
process.
It is a process.
Absolutely.
It's a very much a process. And so keeping people, and that's families, that's students, that's staff, everybody's eyes on the ultimate prize
Right.
for our students.
Okay.
Because 5th grade's hard.
Right.
Middle
Right.
school's hard.
Yeah.
Right.
People tell me I'm crazy for doing middle school, and I tell them I'll be all great
Right.
in a couple of
You have
years.
hormones and kids.
But that's where it starts at, with the young people. I mean, and we're obligated to do what we can to change the narrative and how they're going. How do you guys pick out teachers that are good for your
Definitely.
programs.
Can I, before
Sure.
I answer that question,
Sure, go
can
ahead.
I follow up on
Absolutely.
what you said?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I was thinking of three things. First, when you talked about the perception of charter schools
Sure.
are for-profit and just here for money,
Sure.
right? So one, I think both of us were well aware that even coming into this work, sometimes you inherit the good and the bad,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I've met with people, and everything I talk about in terms of the day of a student,
Sure.
the not only focus on, academic skill sets, but also developing
Yeah.
character and a conscience, right? And the aspect of community and engaging families. And then you say charter school and the face changes, right?
Right.
That happens. It doesn't happen with, 10 out of 10 people,
No,
but
I mean,
2
it
out of
does.
10 people
Sure.
I've talked to, right?
Right.
It does.
So you have to go through kind of what we've already got to here in terms
Right.
of explaining the differences. So one, it's coming into it well aware that we have to earn the credibility and respect of
Absolutely.
teachers, of pastors, of the person who's the director at the Early Child Care Education
Sure.
Center,
Yeah.
et cetera. Over time, what you see is, as Robert said, I don't know about you guys, when I went to school, first day we came and got your locker combinations or did
Yeah.
whatever when we were in class learning.
Right.
Every touch point, and this is something that is another maybe autonomy that some districts don't have the ability to do.
Okay.
We have individual meetings just like this with
Mm-hmm.
families at the library, at the school once we have it in their living room. I just
Awesome.
talked to a mom yesterday on her patio after we canvassed last Sunday. who wants to
Awesome.
sign up for
Yeah,
child.
so you're trying to be more
We're-
personable.
Right.
Got you.
Because when you say that, oh, it's just about the money, also what I hear is that it's not about my child,
Right.
right? My child's just a number. You don't care about my child. That may be inferred
right.
and not said. So they know through, one, these initial touch
That's
points
like one of
that,
the number one stigmas.
right, we value your student, right? You know who I am. You know what my contact information is. We're going to be responsive. We have an open
Right.
door policy where you can come in and see what we're doing and hold us accountable, right?
Right.
We know that it's a partnership and we can't be successful without that.
Sure.
And I think over time, those individual families at charter schools, as you see, at the ones that I've seen that are really, really doing a great job,
Right.
like in some in Memphis, even some here that maybe I haven't been to.
Sure.
Those are parents that really, really are diehard for the
Yeah,
school
right,
because
yeah,
they
right,
recognize
yeah.
that, right?
Right.
The other two things I was going to say is to give a kind of a practical example of the student orientation and all that based on a breakfast I was having this morning. So I was meeting with some guys, non-educators in corporate America, and it was funny. We were talking about field trips or something. The guy's son is kindergarten, getting ready to go to kindergarten,
Sure.
and they were talking about the Indianapolis Arts Museum actually, and why they don't have kids and they're trying to get more students to come, right?
Right.
And we were kind of bouncing ideas, and then they were like, "Yeah, I'm sure it's hard, with field trips bringing kids in
Yeah.
because they can kind of muddy the water, right? If they're acting
Right.
up, not following directions, then
Right.
the institution is like, well, we don't want that group back, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that does happen, but in terms of what field trips are at Allegiant Prep and at the schools I've been at, we frame them as field lessons. So one,
Okay.
it's something that it's an extension of what we've been
like
learning
that.
in class, right? So
Got
if we
you.
go to
I
the
like that a
zoo,
lot.
it's going to be following a science unit. So already the students
yeah.
engaged and invested.
Right.
If they come home, I remember several times, you have a field trip tomorrow to a student? Yeah, where are you going? I don't know. Right? So
Yeah.
already before behavior and all that, they have to be invested in.
Mentally,
There's something
right.
connected, right?
Right.
The other piece is these opportunities are earned. So if we're in school and we're not making the right decisions, if I've
Right.
been buck wild all week, not sitting down in class, not following directions, do you think that we're going to go on a bus and we're going to go outside of this school?
Right.
So they have a mindset of everything is earned, even these things that are just given
Absolutely.
sometimes, right? And the last piece,
Yeah.
and I'll let you go, is around how so before we leave, we all come to the cafeteria and we go over, once we get on the bus, when we get on, we say good morning to the person on the bus.
Okay.
Everyone says good morning, they say it in a college voice, and they make eye contact.
Right.
Once we have all silently got on the bus, and everyone, because it's a safety issue, right, as well,
Okay.
then when the bus gets on the road and we get on the highway, we'll have an opportunity to go to restaurant voice.
Right.
There's levels that we practice, right? Restaurant voice, tiger voice, so we've normed those things.
Okay.
When we get off the bus, we say thank you. When we enter the museum or wherever it is, we say good morning, good afternoon. We make sure that we're following directions. So
Right.
we frame that collectively as a community all the time in terms of even before we get to a field lesson. And
Right.
then when we go on it, we actually then with students, they're seeing that, and it also almost becomes a mechanism for families that work there to say, hey, what school is that? Because they're a lot different than the other groups,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I've
Right.
seen moms and dads like,
Yeah.
I want to come and enroll them
Right.
just off of how those kids are, because it's like typically what they see
Right.
is
Yeah.
completely different, right?
Right.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is what the question that I have because a lot of people have this negative perception on charter schools and even public schools.
Yeah.
But what is going to set you guys apart? Some schools are closing.
Yep.
New ones are opening up. But what is going to set you guys apart from from all of those?
I guess I'll take this one first. So I think the example I just gave
Sure.
is one example, right?
Right,
There's
right.
a deep level of thought and intentionality around every single moment, from the moment the student crosses the threshold into the school every morning to the moment they leave at the end of the day,
Right.
So one example, and I'll come back up high level instead of providing a lot of detail, so I'll bucket it in terms of the mission of the school.
Right.
So Allegiant Preparatory Academy educates all students in grades K through 8 with rigorous academics, character development, and a commitment to community necessary for college success.
Okay.
And a life of positive action.
Absolutely.
So our big thing is it's not just, and I stayed up, both of us toiled over creating. We probably remember back in the day going to schools and there was missions and there were visions, but
Yeah.
nobody really knew. It didn't have any substance to the students or to the staff, right? With those three pillars, the first thing is rigorous academics. So starting in KM1, something that differentiates our models, just charters in general. Extended school day, extended school year, we got that, right?
Right.
I think the one big piece is also looking at the day of the schedule. So there's whole group instruction, right? But there's about 200 minutes of differentiated instruction where students are, your letters, know
Okay.
your sounds, you're starting to sound out blends and diagraphs, you're actually reading, we can kind of delve into comprehension.
Right.
So students have a lot of differentiated instruction time.
That's awesome.
The second piece is we have a tutoring block that's embedded in the school day, is where the lesson may have been great, the teacher may have had great intentions, but kids wouldn't sit down.
Chaos.
They were talking over So that has to be a foundation that goes back to that 2-week student
Right.
orientation, which a lot of times in districts, and I know there's been some changes in districts nationally and also maybe here,
Yeah.
but students just can't come in 5th grade or in kindergarten and have one day of orientation or just go straight into class. It has to
Right.
be, hey, if you have a pencil, this is what you need to do when you have a pencil. If you need
Right.
to use the restroom, this is what you need to do. If
Right.
if we're passing out papers, we have a system in terms of how we pass out
How
papers.
you do that, right.
If we don't do it right, we're going to do it again. We explain the why to the students
A lot of
because
discipline.
we value instructional time. It's sacred. When I
Right.
sat down with your mom, I said, it's going to be 30 minutes of a read aloud block. Every morning you can come in here and see it. So we have to have a system, as you guys probably remember, the color carpet.
Yep.
The kids, the babies.
Yep.
It can't just be, okay, everyone get up from your chair and go to the carpet.
Right.
You're going to have kids knocking over each other, right?
Right.
Row 1, stand up, and we do a cheer to the carpet, right? Row 2, when we're transitioning from the carpet, red row, are you ready? Yes, we're ready. They're
Right.
excited to transition. So
Right.
you almost ritualize these transitions, which in
That's
normal,
awesome.
Traditional schools, maybe kind of glossed over or kind of lost. So there has to be really, really big intention on the culture and the why, so that we can value the instructional time. The final piece that, and Robert, there'll probably be a lot of carryover.
Sure.
The family. The number one thing when I talk to families in Memphis, as a dean of students, as a principal, as a teacher, the number one thing, even when I spoke with the mom last week here in Indianapolis, communication. Well, I don't hear anything from the school unless it's they're flunking or they're getting ready to be suspended.
Right.
That's the only communication, right? So there's already a negative connotation of there's a barrier to help you as a parent understand what your child's deficits are and assets and how you can help them at home and how we can teach you how to help them.
Right.
Also, there's no kind of positive, that's like me coming and giving Pat direct feedback and I don't know him out of nowhere.
Right.
Like, you have stuff all over your face, man. You need, right? But if I know you and there's a level of respect and understanding that we're both
Absolutely.
working for this child and for their success, then we can keep it real, right? But with respect.
Right.
And they have to know they can come in. There's communication every day with life work. They can call in and talk to teachers. If they call a teacher or myself, there's a 24-hour cycle where someone should be calling them back. They can come in and observe. There's no barriers. If you want to come see your child learning and teachers, you can do that. So that's something that I've heard that I don't know if schools really, really emphasize, but parents, I hear a lot about the barrier.
And you touched on it, man, because like there are three elements within everything that you just said that, just not only with like schools, but businesses, it'll either make or break them, man. It's discipline, communication, and the overall structure. And if those three things aren't there, nothing will be sustained.
Right. I remember sitting in I'm not going to name this school because they're overall a pretty decent school. But one thing that I realized that they didn't have under control was the chaos in the room. And that's one thing that rung with me when you mentioned you guys valuing instructional time. I don't think people realize how important that is, because as a parent sitting in the room to see how a teacher is teaching, she's teaching continuously, and then one kid is screaming chicken, the other one's throwing a crayon at the other one's holding up her hand because she wants to tell on the kid throwing the crayon. Another kid's not even paying attention to the teacher. Another kid's staring out the window. So it's like,
Who's learning?
who's learning?
Yeah.
And the teacher is continuing to teach. So is she just trying to get through her course or her day, or is she really engaged in making sure that these kids get what they need?
No, you make
So-
a very valid point. That happens a lot. Something that you mentioned, before I dive into kind of the unique aspects of Vanguard,
Sure.
I just want to piggyback on you hit something on it, and it's about respecting parents.
Absolutely.
And not just respecting them. You should very much respect them as people, but not just that. Respect them as partners
Right.
in their
Right.
children's
That
education.
partnership is key, man.
And the thing that I think a lot of schools ignore,
Yeah.
there are a lot of young parents that have trauma from their bad experiences at school.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if I only, went to half my classes, and then you giving me this complex algebra homework, I'm terrified of that. I don't know
Right.
anything about that, so I can't help my child with that. And so the same way that you have a child that may not connect with the lesson, and so they begin to display some of these negative
Right.
behaviors,
Right.
you have some lashing out from parents because you're asking me to do something that I'm uncomfortable doing. And so being a school that recognizes that, is sensitive to it, but in addition to that, leveraging relationships to be able to provide
Right.
some wraparound supports for parents,
Right.
because we need them in this in order for their children to
Absolutely.
be successful.
Parents have to be engaged. You know that.
The
Even-
right parents.
no matter
the
what,
right parents have
yeah,
to be engaged.
yeah, no matter what school it is, the parents need to be engaged, and we have a responsibility also as parents to make sure that we're engaged in what the kids are doing. I find that some kids don't have any direction outside of school. You'll have those special kids who just have drive regardless, and they're going to do what they need to do. But you also have those kids who need to be captured mentally, and you can't catch them because they're too busy at home taking care of brothers and sisters, or
Real life.
mom is at home, or mom is working, night shift or day shift, and she only, by the time parents get home these days, they've only spent about 3 hours, and you usually use that time doing homework, cooking, and washing up for the next day. So they don't have very much time. So we have to figure out how to continue to engage, be engaged parents, and help out as well.
That's huge. So I'm the non-traditional into the work, and I'm gonna move on from this. I just want to make
Sure, for sure.
And one of the things that was like just shocking to me when I got into it is how many educators blame parents for the challenges that they're having
Yeah.
in the classroom.
Right.
And so to me, that speaks volumes about school leadership, school culture,
Sure.
school systems. What are you doing to mitigate some of those challenges
Absolutely.
leaking over into the classroom? What are you doing to be flexible to accommodate that parent that works a third shift? So,
Right.
one of the things, excuse me, that's in our calendar. You all remember Parent in Touch Night. Your mama might come, she might not.
Right.
They-
Sure.
They got some dry cookies out
PTA
there.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've extended that, so it's not just 2 hours in the evening. It's a full day. We're there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. So that
Okay.
if you do work third shift, you got an
Right.
opportunity to come in. If you work second shift, you got an opportunity to come
Awesome.
in. If you work first shift, we're there.
You guys
so
are
that
extending
parents-
your hours so that, the parents get off and have time to come.
We have
That's
to if
awesome.
we really want to get parents engaged and make sure that we're mitigating all those challenges and all
Sure.
those things that we hear about why they can't engage.
Right.
In terms of Vanguard and what's different and special about it, really the pillars of school center around three things. It's about a focus and intention on getting every kid not just to college,
Okay.
but making sure that they understand that college graduation
Absolutely.
is the goal.
Yeah.
And college graduation, I need people to understand it's not a happening, it's a process.
Okay.
And it's a process that really begins
Yeah.
in kindergarten,
Right.
where Rick is
Right.
starting, right?
Right.
I'm just getting them at fifth grade.
Right.
And so I'll talk a little bit about how we plan to get students ready. The second thing is character,
awesome.
intentional character development. The last thing is about supporting all of our students, no
Right.
matter where their needs are. So when we talk about being a college preparatory school, that means a few things. That means harder classes. Right? More rigorous curriculum.
Sure.
But rigorous curriculum means absolutely nothing if you don't have high quality instructors, if you
Absolutely.
don't have quality teachers. It's like getting
Right.
a brand new Ferrari and no keys. You're
Right.
going nowhere. And so that's a huge emphasis for us. Rick mentioned life work, which is essentially homework
Sure.
in layman's terms,
Sure.
but it's imperative to life. It's imperative for all of our students, right? It's due Monday through Friday. Let me paint a picture for you. Student comes to school in the morning.
Right.
First person that they see should be me or another school leader. They're greeted with a smile, right? Warm greeting.
Regardless of what the day was yesterday.
Right.
Doesn't even matter. All that's
Living it out.
behind us. That's behind us.
Yeah.
Warm greeting, first thing in the
Right.
morning.
Right.
Next step, they get another greeting. So now, before you ever even really got into the building good, you've had 2 warm greetings from an adult. From there, they go and they do their uniform check.
Okay.
So you might not have a belt. Head to the office. We'll get you squared away. Pat has his belt. Pat proceeds on. The very next step that Pat makes, Pat's going to the homework check.
Right.
I'm not checking for accuracy at this point. I'm checking for completion. Did you do your homework?
Right.
Pat has all his homework done. You get checked off. Appreciate you, Pat. Have a great day. Pat goes to class. Let's say you finish, you get your
Right.
belt, you show up to homework
Sure.
check. You got your reading homework, but you don't have your science homework.
Right.
Guess what, my man?
What's
You're
that?
gonna be in lunch.
Oh, boy.
And it's not a detention.
Right.
It's a work study
Absolutely.
group, right? And so you're in lunch. It's not a social lunch, and you're in there and you're finishing your homework.
Absolutely.
Because homework is imperative and it has to be completed.
Sure.
The other thing that's just important about college preparatory, we emphasize those foundational skills. So we have 160 minutes of reading and writing every day, and we have 110 minutes of math instruction every day, which
Okay.
is really crucial. We have a longer school day than the traditional school.
Sure.
In order to help us to accomplish that. When we talk about Rick talked a lot about character development. I won't go back into that, but the last thing is about student supports, and it's one of the things that really excites me. We did a lot to in terms of our school design to make sure that we're supporting students.
Sure.
4 things that I'll speak about real quickly. One, just make sure from day one we have a highly qualified, dual certified special ed and ELL student supports coordinator. So
Sure.
somebody that is keeping track of how students are maintaining, and not just those students who have those designations, but every student. Make sure that they're receiving the type of supports that they need to. Second thing is we have Saturday Academy once a semester. It lasts 6 weeks, and so we use our interim assessments to determine who needs those supports to come to Saturday school. The
Absolutely.
teachers who are working these Saturdays receive an additional stipend. You can't just keep asking people because they're on salary to come in and give up their Saturday without compensating them and supporting them. And so we have our teachers coming in on Saturday for 3 hours, providing Saturday Academy. The last 2 things are what really excite me. One is at the last block of every day for Vanguard is
Yeah.
tutoring. And so you receive tutoring based upon what we call exit tickets.
Okay.
At the end of each class, you get essentially what is the best way I can describe it is a short quiz. It's a check for understanding. Did you connect with the lesson today?
Right.
And based upon that, we decide which tutoring session that you need to go to. So
Okay.
you may traditionally be a great reading student, but today you hit a snag. And so we're going to get you some assistance.
Okay.
That real-time support is so important for students.
Absolutely.
And then, the second thing that's part of our daily schedule that supports all of our students is what we call a power hour.
Okay.
And it happens in math. It happens in ELA twice a day. You get students who are station rotation model, right? So they spend a short amount of time one-to-one on Chromebooks on the computer working with adaptive software.
Okay.
So that means that it meets them wherever their academic need
Good.
is and helps them to work to and through
Good.
grade level equivalent.
So there's a test that takes place in that somewhere. Okay.
At the very beginning,
Sure.
it says, okay, he's at this.
Right.
He's a 5th grader, but he's reading at a 2nd grade level.
Right.
It starts you at 2nd grade level and keeps working you up.
Right.
The second station is small group instruction. So it's a small group like this, working with the teacher to receive some individualized instruction.
Okay.
And then the last piece is the last rotation station is some independent work. And so these are some of the core things that we're doing to make sure that we are supporting all of our students. It doesn't matter if you are a lower tier reader or if you are a 5th grader reading at an 11th grade level, we're providing some supports that are individualized to you.
Wow, man, that's great, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's big.
a shout out to our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. Post any questions or comments that you have for these gentlemen.
Yes.
One question is, what kind of teacher development do you provide to teachers, and what is the most important for your teacher growth?
Good question.
I'm sorry, what was the last part of that question?
So, what is the most important for your teacher growth?
Yeah. Teachers are this is cliche and we know this, teachers are the most important individuals in the life of a
Sure.
student at school,
Right.
regardless of the principal, head of school, whatever that term may be.
Sure.
And their development is also very critical. So typically at traditional schools that I heard of, and again, I'm making blanket statements, and this may not apply to all traditional schools,
Okay.
but professional development may be 2 or 3 days. And within that 2 or 3 days, a lot of it could be administrative fill out your new benefits. Here's
Right.
the new code to the Wi-Fi,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. Let's get started, go to class.
Right.
At both of our schools, and typically at traditional, charter schools, there's 3 weeks of summer professional development. So think about it. You've been out of school, and now, you're coming to school, and it's not like a talking to you kind of thing. It's
Right.
actual development. So what that means is teachers will come in, and we will look at, you can look at the mission and vision of the school. You can look at our cultural expectations. You can look at lesson plan execution. And with that being said, we get together and we practice scenarios with students, right? If a student is refusing to follow your directions and you're in class, what is the most least invasive way to address that? It's not saying the student's name and calling them out right away, right? It's what did you do? Proximity, did you move closer? Did you pause and scan after you made your direction? Did you do a nonverbal? Right. So, what are the steps you're taking to before you publicly say something or before you use the consequence system? That's not just something that
Body language, man, is key.
Right. So
Absolutely,
learning
it
all
is.
these things that you may come in and not pick up on with the natural eye, but all those things are trained, right? Then it's not just our teachers know how to manage a classroom. They have a teacher toolkit in terms of using proximity, using the least invasive form, using intervention with students, right? Then it's now we actually have to teach, right? It's not chaotic. Everyone's sitting down. Now, when I get my lesson plan,
You've gained control.
Right. So now, do I know how to teach my read aloud lesson, my reading comprehension lesson, my guided reading lesson? And it's actually sitting there and doing lesson execution practice. So it's taking the lesson, it's looking and saying, first, how do we take this lesson? How do we actually plan?
Right.
It could be, this is a box curriculum that we're using a lesson plan from, or it's teacher created based off Indiana academic standards.
Sure.
Right? From there, it's still saying, what question are you going to ask when you get on page 4? So if the theme is character motivation, on page 4, Paul lost his bike. And his friend Jimmy took his bike. I may stop and say, what is the character motivation, right?
Right.
I, as a teacher, just can't come up with that on the fly. Some could, right, if you've been teaching a long time or maybe a short time.
Sure.
But you have to be thoughtful in what question you're going to ask on each page. How
Right.
are you going to ask it? What is a correct answer from a student? Is it just saying he was mad? Yeah, that's a great answer. He was mad because of this, and this. No,
Right.
actually, the student didn't answer the question. You answered the question.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
how do you understand ratio in terms of how students took? So when we get to the end goal, 99% of our students have mastered the objective of character motivation versus only the 2 or 3
Counter
that are in the
answers.
front row. Right. So it's teaching the nuances of our cultural expectations, our academic expectations, and practicing that. And then the last week of orientation is around practicing for student orientation. That's on the front end of the school year. So 3 weeks of professional development for teachers, which at a traditional school it may be 2 or 3 days. There's a stark difference. During the course of the year, teachers are observed at least at a minimum 2 times a week, and it's not coming in to do an evaluation and to just stare at you and make you feel uncomfortable so that you can get your number 5 or number 6.
Right.
It's actually to come in and, as Robert talked about, the partnership between the parents and the parents and the families of the school. It's a partnership between the teacher and the school leader. I'm coming in and they know that this isn't to make fun of you, to belittle you, to point out your weaknesses. So today we're coming in. Last week in our check-in, we were looking at students and their responses to questions. And I'll use the ratio example again.
Okay.
We saw that students were just saying yes and no, but you weren't able to really tell, do they know the answer? So
Right.
we're going to practice our responses back in terms of provide me with evidence.
That's
What
good.
page did you find that on? So when I come in today for that 30-minute guided reading lesson, that's all I'm going to be looking at, right?
Right.
That's a small win. Great job, right?
Right.
And then we move to the next thing and to grow. So
Sure.
that the mindset of what feedback looks like is not an evaluation, it's not a number. It's coming in and actually trying to grow you. Do we have a rubric for what effectiveness looks like at
Yes,
both
sir.
schools?
Right.
Yes,
Right.
we do. But it's about your development and growth and getting that consistently. Remember my example when I said I was a terrible teacher at the beginning, my first year as a first grade teacher, and became an awesome teacher by the second half of the year?
Right.
It's because I had a lead teacher in the classroom who was really strong, which we'll have during literacy,
Sure.
and a school leader that was coming in and giving me bite-sized feedback every day, right?
Right.
That I knew was building me up in my toolkit
Sure.
to be an effective leader in
Right.
the classroom. I think the last piece is data days. So as Robert talked about, we collect data. So as the teacher, I just can't come in and try to shoot blind at, I think they will master this and they kind of know this.
Right.
We have these assessments or diagnostics or interims during the school year to collect data that informs the instruction in class. So when we
Right.
sit together on a data day, we're looking at these assessments, pulling out what standards were mastered, what standards weren't mastered,
Sure.
and then creating lesson plans and practicing them for the following day in class on Monday.
Right.
I think those are
That's
some
awesome.
different elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other piece that I think differentiates our schools is that we're a founding school, and there is something, in my opinion, I really like being on a founding team versus
Okay.
something that's established, right? This is going to be hard work.
Right.
Being very clear up front in
Right.
the interview.
Right.
There's going to be long days, long nights. If you're looking at what it traditionally may have looked like at another school, erase that from your memory.
Right.
And I'm really pushing. The interview process is rigorous, situational. If I give you feedback on something, how do you respond to it?
Right.
It could, maybe not even in the interview. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I would state that differently.
Right.
So really pushing and being clear on what it feels like at the school, but the why behind that.
Gotcha.
Just the
Right.
same way we talk about the why with the family and the why with the student.
Right.
We do this because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And then there's also a developmental path where as we're adding a grade each year, we're going to go from a staff of 9 and at Allegiant Prep and starting with 6 classroom teachers, 2 school leadership. But by the end of, by the time we get to 8th grade, we have a lower academy dean of students, a lower academy dean of curriculum instruction, an upper DCI, an upper dean of students, and the head of school. These are individuals that were a part of the founding team that really, really know, to an intense level, right, of detail, what it means, what our expectations mean at Allegiant Prep, and they're moving into these positions versus kind of moving into maybe a leadership position and not clearly really knowing what the definition of a leadership position
Right.
is. Because sometimes it can be like, oh, well, they're not going to see me, right? I'm the leader. You don't really see the principal. I was thinking about the high school we went to, how often I used to see the principal.
Now we're giving you leadership responsibilities, but I have given you 0 leadership training, and I haven't been an effective leader to show you what an effective leader is supposed to look like. And so it's very important. One of the other things I just want to add, he really covered it well.
Sure.
But when we do our weekly professional development sessions,
Yes.
each school will close down early on Fridays to do professional development with their staff.
Okay.
And through that, our staff receive about a month more of professional development during the course of the school year. So,
Wow.
Well, man, I mean, it just seems like you guys are putting more onus and responsibility on the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But equipping them.
Yeah.
right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just building them up
Which
to
is
be
good.
better.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
good because that part of your model, that alone, I think, will help separate you from other charter schools.
Absolutely. I mean,
Just
very,
putting, just putting that responsibility on
very
teachers.
detailed, very detailed, and I understand it all. As a parent with a kid, I'm like, man, when is school going to open? So here's something that has been on my heart for a long time, and actually used my oldest son as a test subject to pull him from going to summer school every summer to actually being a straight A student, which he's gone from. And I realized one thing about that, and using him as a test subject, I realized that life skills are very important. And when I say life skills, I realized that like how you engage that child at school and at home is very important to their internal growth.
for sure.
Like, if they're not being challenged at home to do homework and to be better and to, to think, do critical thinking, you can't think that that's all that they just go to school and if that's the only place they're getting it, they're not practicing it all day.
Yeah.
So, the homework is important, but, you have kids, like I said earlier, who are going home to feed other siblings.
Yeah.
They're the parents because they can't, they have no other choice but to make sure that the younger siblings eat. They have grown people challenges when they come to school.
They do.
So now you're just force feeding them math, English, all these different things when they're thinking like, when I leave, I don't know if we got hot dogs. I'm gonna have to walk down the street to the store on the corner or the gas station and go get. How are you guys implementing and catching those students who have everything going on outside of school and are still challenged to be great inside school? How do you challenge their outside life?
For Vanguard, I'll start with one thing. I think it's me leveraging my experience as a nonprofit executive for the last 13 years.
Okay.
So I know the organizations that can provide the types of wraparound supports
Sure.
that students need. For instance, we have a relationship with Adult and Child, which is the state's largest mental health provider,
Sure.
to come in and provide social and emotional support for our students, but also for training.
Absolutely.
For our teachers, because they
Right.
need to be aware of the challenges that their students are facing and how to react. They need to know how to react to some of those challenges. And so I think it's really important to build strong relationships because we're a school. Our first
Right.
primary job is
Right,
to
right, sure,
educate.
sure, academic, right.
But you're absolutely right.
They're
There
spending
is-
more time at school than they are at home, so there has to be some program,
You're
right?
absolutely right, because but it's very real that students have adult situations, and so
sure.
needing to make sure that we are connecting families to the support that they need. The other thing is, and Rick will probably get into this too, but it's around school culture. How do you build your school culture?
Sure.
What does that look like? Because we all, as adults, we go to work every day
Right.
with some real stuff on our
Right,
head.
absolutely.
And so what are those coping skills that we've learned? How do we maintain professionalism in the workplace in spite of those challenges?
Right.
So imagine teaching that to a kindergarten. Imagine teaching that to a
Right.
fifth grade.
You're taking on their challenges. Yeah.
Some of those skills to be
Right.
able to cope and maintain their professionalism, I think are two things that are really important.
Right.
And I was smiling. Obviously, this is very serious, but I'll tell you why I was smiling, because as you talked about using adults as an example, I think about, in previous roles in schools where you'll have that teacher that's snapping, right?
Right.
And it's like the punishment doesn't fit the.
Right.
You're going, like,
Sure.
You're just having a bad day right now.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's one
Right.
of those,
Sure.
right?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It's kind of,
Oh, yeah.
So think about if that happens in terms of our emotional barometer that sometimes adults need recalibrated.
Sure.
With students.
Yep.
So that was. But the first thing, also kind of an anecdote from being in a school. I'm a very big believer on a personal level, Allegiant Prep aside, of you speak into existence things, right? Sarcasm or being serious.
Sure.
And some of that's frustrated sarcasm.
Right.
Like these kids are this and that, or
Right,
this,
right.
this parent or mom is lazy.
Right.
We've heard it. But
Right.
we can act like we haven't, but you hear.
Right.
Unfortunately, teachers
Oh,
say
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
meaning it seriously or just being sarcastic.
Right.
Yep.
I've had scenarios like that where I've had to do a gut check, and it's like, at no point ever should something come out of your mouth like that in front of a student, in front of a staff in a break room,
Sure.
or anywhere, because the toughest job that anyone has on this planet is not the job you're doing in the classroom, and not the
Sure.
job I'm doing.
Sure.
It's that mom that's
Yeah.
working the night
Yeah.
shift who has 3 other kids she's taking somewhere else,
Right.
trying to get them to school on time, trying to keep her lights. That's the person who
Sure.
deserves to be here behind the microphone.
Sure.
So it's one, really, really being clear on,
Right.
as a school, we're very serious-minded about
Awesome.
respect for our families, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of the partnerships and wraparound services, we have to do that, because there's no way that the school or the child can be successful without addressing some of the other
Right.
things that are barriers to them being successful at school.
Right.
And I'm trying to think of examples, but instead of going to an example, I'll use, for instance, also knowing and understanding where the child is coming in at, right? So
Right.
sometimes students get labels, right? When
Sure.
Robert was talking about a minute
Right.
ago,
Yeah.
and I said, but if it's
ADHD
the
and
next
all
day,
that,
right? If
yeah.
it's the next day, we assume the best because it's the next day.
Right.
I don't care if yesterday you threw a chair, you flipped over, whatever it is. This is a new day. How are you doing this morning? I can't wait for us to have a great day.
Right, right.
Sometimes what happens is students come in and, their head is down, where they're just disengaged. Well, they don't care, right? They don't want to do their work. No. How late were they up last night? Are they staying in
Right.
the living room with
Did
multiple
they even
siblings?
eat?
Right. So
Right.
it's,
Did
it's
they
having
even-
the, it's having the social workers, right?
Right.
It's having a lens also as a school leader of not only expectations but empathy and identifying while still holding those high expectations. It could be, hey, we got to figure out again who we need to partner this family with because this child isn't getting proper rest at nighttime, right?
Right.
It could be,
Yeah.
they're late every single day. Oh, they're just tired. What is it? I'm going to actually, if they walk to school, I'm going to walk you home and
Yeah.
see, right?
Yeah.
If
Right.
you, we don't know because they go to daycare and we never see. Well, I'm going to go to the daycare today. How about that? They're going to see.
So you're gonna be more engaged.
That's
Right.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Have to.
because you,
Exactly.
you have to. And the last piece, I had a student when I was in Memphis. I'll never forget the student living with the grandmother. The parents had died. Had 3 or 4 other siblings that were older than him. I was teaching a lesson. I remember I saw him sitting one day, and I saw like first grade. Remember, so
Yeah.
like almost like a cloth type diaper.
Okay.
So I'm like, why is he in first grade wearing a diaper?
Right.
In my head, right?
Right.
And this is proving the point of what I was just saying. Fast forward, he's using the restroom on himself a few different times, right? And I'm coming, at this point, I'm taking him to school, I'm picking him up, we're going out on the weekend, grandma can't handle it, so I'm